Hi guys, it's Ollie from Rad Season. Welcome to the Rad Season show. I'm stoked to be joined today by windsurfing legend Björn Dunkerbeck. Björn, how are you, man?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Yeah, well, thanks. How's everything? You're back in Gran Canaria, is that right?
Yes, I made it back from Bonaire on last Saturday afternoon, and I've been on the water here a couple of times already. Today it's windy. As soon as you're over with this podcast, I'm going foiling actually.
Oh, nice. All good. How's the conditions been? Has it been pretty? Has it been good since you got back? Like, has it been a good winter so far?
Medium wind this week, but still warm. Still going a short wetsuit when I go slalom board sailing or foiling. So water is still over 20 degrees, and today we have a bit of clouds, but it is winter here as well. But it's not as cold as over in Europe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean we're over. I'm over in Portugal, and it's been yeah. I mean, like Nazaré been firing. It's kind of been sort of giant swells coming in, and yeah, water's getting a bit colder, but yeah, it's all good. And how was the trip? What did you get up to over there?
Well, in Bonaire, I have the Dunkerbeck Pro Center since 3 years, together with owner Jan Hendrik of the Shore Beach Resort, and Philippe Bru, the owner of an organizer of the biggest windsurf race in the world, the Defi Wind from France. And we do that because they have the endless summer over there. I mean, Gran Canaria is already endless summer, but there's even warmer. So you can basically sail in boat shorts all year long. And there's some beautiful watercolors over there. And I was doing some photographing, some filming, and always just spending good time on the water. And also when over there as well, I do a couple of days with VIP training. Okay. So just any level, teach the tricks to kids and adults to improve their windsurfing.
Nice. And when's the best time of year to go, would you say? Is there any sort of
for
specific
Europeans? Time? For Europeans, absolutely the best time is to go when it's cold in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you can get out on board shorts, right?
Yeah, that's 8 months out of the year, from September to probably end of May.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy, like getting over from the US. But what about what about from Europe? Like, where do you go?
It's easy. Yeah, direct flight from Amsterdam.
Okay.
It's Netherlands Antilles, so. Actually, Bonaire is still Koninkrijk Holland. So it's easy, very easy, with a European passport.
Yeah. All good. Well, I'd love to kind of jump back into the Canaries, Gran Canaria, and like, because you moved over there when you were really young. You were like 8 years old, weren't you, when your parents decided to go over there?
My parents fell in love with windsurfing in Denmark in 76. And then moved to Gran Canaria and opened the Windsurf Center in April of 78, where I then shortly after learned it at that small lake in Maspalomas in the south of the island of Gran Canaria.
Right. And did they did they try and get it were they trying to get you windsurfing when they were over in Denmark, or before you guys went to the Canaries?
In Denmark, I laid on the back of the board, but I never actually windsurfed myself. I was too young, and the rigs were too heavy at that time. Shortly after we came to Canary Islands, we had smaller sails for kids, and then I was pretty rapidly on the board as well.
Yeah. And when they went there, they just then fell in love with the place, with the weather, and set up a. That was when they set up a windsurf center. Is that right?
Yeah, the first Dunkerbeck Windsurf Center in Gran Canaria was open in 78, and they're still running. I mean, it's just on a different beach now. We had up to 3 centers running at the same time, and now we're back to 2. So, surfing, bodyboarding, stand-up paddling, windsurfing, wingboarding, wingfoiling, everything that has to do with fun.
Everything with water as well, right?
Water and boards, and wind and waves.
And like both your parents, they were racing and they were competing, weren't they?
They both competed. My mother was actually second and third in the Winter Worlds in the 79, 80, 81. And my father was actually a Spanish speed sailing champion in the mid 80s. And they're still windsurfing. So as my father says, windsurfing keeps you young. You just got to keep on it.
That's it. If you do it, is he going like every day like you do as well, or like?
Yeah, not every day, but pretty often still.
That's amazing. And like when you were sort of, well, I guess growing up and seeing them, I mean, competing, that must have sort of then just, that was just normal, like witnessing your parents doing that. And I mean, when you got into it, I mean, you were around like 12, right? When you first started racing.
I started competing here in Gran Canaria at around that age, 12, and then Spain and Europe 13, 14, and on 15 I did my first professional competitions, and I was actually second in the junior worlds with 15 in the under 18 category. So I was very young and rapidly up in the world class.
And did you think anything? I mean, now like looking back, did you think about sort of like, were you looking at just each event and each competition and going, look, you know, I want to have fun, I want to win, or was there like this kind of drive back then, would you say, when you were a kid?
Well, when you're a kid, everything is fun, you know, and obviously I was trying to win my categories. In the open category, you have no chance as a kid. But I grew up pretty rapidly, and with 16, I was doing the entire world tour at the time and became seventh the first year. And with 18, I was second, just after Robby Naish. And with 19, I was then first from 1988 till 99. I won 12 times in a row the overall championships and 30 different discipline titles in this period. So I was pretty much unbeatable.
And who did you look up to when you started competing?
Well, that's all the top guys, especially Robby Naish. And after a while, I mean, he was much older than me in the beginning. And then we were like really hard competitors for many, many years. And in the end, now in the last couple of years, last 10 years, I would say, we became friends as well. Yeah.
And I mean, was there rivalry, would you say, with these guys, like right from the beginning? Or
no one likes being the best, and the kid comes and beats you. I tell you, I didn't like it either. And Robby Naish was never a good loser. No one likes losing.
No, and I mean, especially like between the two of you, right? I mean, he was sort of keeping it at that level for so long. I mean, there must have, sort of like. Would you say that kind of kept the drive and kind of kept?
Well, in wave sailing, I had many opponents, but especially in the beginning was definitely Robby Naish. In other disciplines, I had a lot of other opponents, like Anders Springdale was a very long time, mostly second, or very often. And in the later years, we had a lot of different other competitors. I mean, I was doing the whole world circuit for 30 years, so there's been many that came and went, and new ones grew up.
Yeah, and what kind of kept you doing it for so long? Would you just say like it was the love for windsurfing, and it was sort of like, I mean, you would be freestyling anyway if you weren't competing?
Absolutely. I mean, I am a competition person. I like challenging myself against the best, and I still do that on speed sailing for the time being. And even when I stopped that in a few years, I will still continue freestyling. I mean, windsurfing is a great feeling and a lot of fun and keeps you fit. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And when did you start speed sailing? Like what was the fascination around that? Like when it was started?
The nice thing about windsurfing, you have so many different disciplines between wave sailing, freestyle, free ride, speed sailing, racing, slalom, and now also foiling in light winds, that you never really have time to get bored. And especially speed sailing, you can do it for a long time because you need a lot of experience, both with water and equipment. And also you need to be quite heavy to be able to go really fast. I mean, I've been working on the latest project, which was being the 100 km an hour on a windsurf board, and I only broke that like at the last attempt down in Luderitz in Namibia just a month ago. And I've been working on that project for the last 7 or 8 years probably. And finally I made it.
And how was that feeling? I mean, like
incredible. It was a great success to actually achieve it. First, I called 50 knots in 2002. And then by 2011, 10 people, including myself, had done that. And that's like 94.5 km an hour. And then I called 100 km. It's possible on a windsurf board. And everybody kind of looking at me like, are you crazy? It's not possible. You're going to have cavitation before that and all kinds of stuff. It's not going to happen. And meanwhile, 5 or 6 people have passed the 100 km, and me doing the top speed down in USDC with 103.68 kilometers an hour, which equals to 55.98 knots and 60 miles an hour for the Americans. That's fast. They can drive at a highway in Hawaii, at least.
That's crazy. And I mean, like if you fall at that speed, like
You don't want to fall at speed. Definitely don't want to fall.
No. Yeah, I mean, like, what makes it so fast there? Over in Namibia, what's the
wind is very powerful.
Okay.
First of all, the wind is very powerful, and the channel that's built for speed windsurfing, especially, is very fast because it's very straight, has a very good angle to the wind, and that's really why it's the fastest place in the world at the moment. And I think for the next couple of years, it still will be the fastest place, and that's why I keep going back there every year. We're already planning for next year to go back another time for 3 weeks and or 4 weeks even, and trying to break the 100 Ks on 500 meters, which with a better channel, I think is entirely possible.
Awesome. And I mean, are you looking at 110 and like 60 knots? Is that sort of within range, do you think, or?
110 might be pushing it a lot in the beginning because the channel is relatively short. Okay. But I do believe that if we get the slowing down area a bit longer, that a top speed of 105 can be achieved. And if you get a couple of really good days like this year, maybe a few more than 100 Ks, average speed on the 500 meter official record length course is also possible.
Okay. And what sort of factors go into it apart from obviously wind conditions and the sail, the board, everything like that? I mean, looking at the equipment, that's got to be vital, right? And making sure that
the equipment will improve during the time of the period that we have till next attempt. But the main thing is that the channel has to be even better, even more perfect than this year. And in that case, the water quality will be better and will make it possible to go even faster.
Okay. So would you say, is that your main focus then now?
Yes, we're already working on it. As we're speaking, we are working on it.
Yeah. And so is that going to be November as well next year?
Yes.
And it's always the same sort of time when you get those wind conditions and.
Yes, it's always like end of October, November, beginning of December.
Okay, nice. And before that, I mean, sort of like looking at all these different disciplines within windsurfing, did you have any? Was there any like favorite discipline when you were younger, like or when you were competing? Were you like was there any focus or?
When you're young, I mean, I started off racing on longboards, and then wave sailing became very interesting for many years. And I was also 7 times world champion in wave sailing and have the record of most world titles in that discipline as well. And I was winning slalom and racing and waves in the same year. I mean, I won 5 world titles in 1994, and no one has ever done that before. No one ever will do that again, probably.
Yeah. And was that like, what do you think the reason was behind that?
I grew up in Gran Canaria, and you have so much variation in conditions, and I loved wave sailing, but also I love the racing part of it, because in wave sailing you have the judges deciding who is the best, but in racing, whoever crosses the finishing line first is the winner. There's no question about it. So it's just different challenges, and being able to do everything at top level was the biggest challenge of them all.
And like now, what like where do you see it developing? I guess with wave sailing, with freestyle, so looking at what they're doing at like stand-up surfing, places like Nazaré, things like that. Do you reckon that's sort of within realms for windsurfing as well?
Nazaré, people have windsurfed already. Obviously, for towing, I did towing for 15 years at G.O.A.T, and we started off towing in board shorts, with all this safety gear. But now there's so many people doing it that it's been pushed up and new places have been found. And Nazaré in Portugal is a very tall wave.
Yeah.
And when it's right, it's also a very beautiful wave. So there's many places that popped up in the last 5 years. And I'm sure a few more will pop up in the next couple of years because there's just so many people doing it now that they'll find new places.
Yeah, and how was it? So when you were doing it at Jaws, I mean, was that kind of like the early days, just when almost around like the pioneering times with when like Laird Hamilton and like people?
Yes, absolutely. That was exactly. He was a few years earlier, obviously, but I started doing windsurfing and also towing surfing in the mid-90s, and that lasted all the way up to like at least 2012. I think that's the last time I was out there.
Yeah, and Yeah, how was that? I mean, that would have just been a couple. There would have been a handful of people, if not. I mean, now it's kind of
now it's a
when you go
zoo.
out there on a big day, it's yeah.
Back then was 2-3 jet skis. That was it, and you were like happy that you wouldn't be alone.
Yeah, just for safety check, or you can have someone to talk to, right? And kind of.
Well, you feel safer if you're a few guys out, and when something happens, there's always an extra ski, which is always nice. But now they're like paddling in, they're windsurfing in, and they're towing in, and they're paddling with a stand-up paddle, and a kite comes through. It's like a big zoo, and everybody wants to get that picture. So I think it's actually more dangerous now because there's so many people out there wanting to do it that they're going to like end up hitting each other.
Yeah, and what do you think about all the different options and I guess the development within water sports, everything from like stand-up paddle to wing to hydrofoil?
Yes, it's all the different toys are going off, and everybody that knows how to do it, they want to show off. So there's no limit. There's just the only limit is your training time and your talent.
Yeah, and I mean when you were like when you were in Gran Canaria, when you were younger, and when you were like training and when you were competing, did you kind of think that there would be all these options like hydrofoil and all these kind of things? Did you think that was a possibility, or were you looking at kind of like like sort of like 80s 90s that these sports will become a thing and they will take off eventually?
I don't think in the 80s and 90s I was thinking that, but beginning of 2000 there was a couple of almost unrideable foils around already, and I thought that sooner or later it's going to be interesting, and especially in the light wind for windsurfing, it's already taking off tremendously in the last 5 years, and it's going to take off in the next future, and it's going to be no limits. And that's going to take away the issue of having to use a windsurfing channel for going really fast, because the chop is not such an issue because you just fly across everything.
Yeah.
So now it's more like getting smaller boards and even smaller foils on the mast, as we call them. And then there will be new areas written, new history is going to come up.
Yeah. And what do you think will, like, what does the future hold for windsurfing? And
well, the future is already like the next Olympics are going to be on foils. The next 2 Olympics are going to be on the IQ foil.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Made by my Starboard,
mm-hmm.
both in Paris and the one coming up after that as well.
I mean, would you say being in the Canaries and sort of having access to all those different things, that sort of made you open-minded to then competing in all these different disciplines, doing all these different sports, depending on, if there's no wind, if there's no waves, you can go paddleboarding. Is it like, would you say it was sort of based on the location and then based on the people that you were around as well, and then people sort of coming into the islands? And
absolutely, I mean, if you want to be on the water every day, you gotta be able to do all the different disciplines. Stand-up paddling, surfing, longboarding, windsurfing, slalom sailing, long distance, foiling nowadays as well, wave sailing. If you do everything, then you're never gonna be dry. You'll be in the water every day.
Yeah. And you're also a keen snowboarder and a mountain biker as well. And like I heard, wasn't there a case where you got injured snowboarding, and that sort of this is like I'm going back quite a while, but like didn't you have an injury sort of like during the season, and then that took you out of competition?
Winter season, in between the 2 weekends on the Düsseldorf boat show, I went to the Austrian Alps, and there was a bad year with snow, but I went snowboarding anyways, wiped out, and I ripped my collarbone out on the left side. So I had 6 weeks. I had 2 pins in my shoulder. I missed 1 World Cup in the year, but I managed to come back really quickly before the second one, and I still managed to be world champion at the end of the year. So it was a tragic accident, but it was in the beginning of the winter season, so I had enough time to get back to full power again.
Yeah.
I actually went to a spectator in the first one in the south of France. I remember Almanar, and I was not fully recovered, so I couldn't take part. And I still managed. That was one of my
Was that
accidents.
frustrating watching the guys?
Well, yeah, I just felt, it was not so smart to go snowboarding in shitty snow, You should probably stayed off the snow, but I figured I'm there. I'm going to go and try. And snowboarding in snow is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. And I mean, were your sponsors pretty angry? They're like, if you're going to do it, don't do it on a different. If you're going to do it snowboarding, it's acceptable if like it's part of it if you're going to get injured if you're windsurfing. But yeah, what do they say?
Well, it was not a bad season of the year, and I came back so strong that no one actually said anything.
Yeah,
and I haven't been that stupid after that, so it was all good.
Nice. I mean, what about during those 30 years then? I mean, like, were there any kind of any injuries or any sort of times where you thought, okay, you were going to take a breather, or you were going to kind of take some time off?
Well, I think that the good thing about windsurfing is that the season usually started around like March and April, and it lasts until November. So you still got quite a bit of time off.
Yeah.
So you have a breathing time in the winter, and of course, usually you do your training and your testing in that time, but it's not as intense as during the competition season. Right. And since I love competition, I didn't mind. I'd rather have 20 good competition than only 10. So I was just on fire the whole time.
Nice. Yeah, how's it now seeing your kids compete? Because Liam's sort of, he's sort of taking part in sort of he's doing freestyle, isn't he? And like and
wave sailing
and wave sailing and yeah. How's that?
Well, he pretty much grew up on a board, and he was also Canadian champion in surfing, shortboard, under 10, under 12, under 14, and in top 3 and under 16. And in windsurfing, he was also the top in the youth, and became world champion 2 years ago in the under 17 category. And this last September in Klitmøller, he became second in the under 20 category. And for next year, as in 2022, he's gonna be starting in all the wave competitions in the open class as well.
Okay, awesome.
And he went to Luderitz with me this year, and actually he broke the 80Ks on 500 meters and almost 85 in top speeds, and managed to be the youngest one to ever go down the channel in Luderitz. So he's making his own milestones already.
And he's going to be going with you back over there next year as well?
I think the plan is that hopefully there's going to be no other wave sailing World Cup during that period, but if it works out time-wise, I'm sure he will come back with me many times.
Awesome. Cool. And what sort of projects are you working on now? Because wasn't there like there's a documentary which is going to come out?
That's right.
Which Rebel are doing.
And been working on a documentary cinema movie for the last year and a half already. Mm-hmm. It's going to be the whole history compact together, and whatever I've been doing ever since we started filming. And it's going to be launched on the Sult World Cup in October of next year, probably on the first weekend. And his plan is to have 90 minutes on the big screen. So it's going to be pretty interesting what my friend Gerald Salmina from Planet Watch is going to put up on the screen.
Nice. And is that going to be footage like sort of going way back? Is it kind of looking at like
going way back, the whole history, and then whatever we have done in the last year and a half? Actually, we started filming like 2 years ago in Luderitz, which you've probably seen a trailer on my YouTube channel.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and there's going to be still filming between Canary Islands, Cape Verde, back to Bonaire in January, and whatever comes along before the final cut is done.
Nice one. And I mean, like what have been some of your favorite places, would you say, over the years? Like places that you kind of would love to go back to for competing, or just in general?
I would definitely say that Gran Canaria, Canary Islands, Fuerteventura, Lanzarote, Tenerife as well. And then the Hawaiian Islands, they stand out for sure.
Yeah.
Then probably Fiji, Tahiti, and obviously for speed sailing back to Namibia, to Luderitz again. And that would be the most interesting place until we find a better one.
Yeah.
But as I said, we're already working on next year. So, and we are working actually on a long-term project with a few of the good locals down there, and they have seen also the interest is growing from more people to come and be able to do their personal best and
really?
national records and also world records. Yeah, so it's kind of a cool place to go and hang out and challenge yourself against the rest of the best or the rest of the fastest, anyways.
Yeah. And do you guys get there early and then do training and kind of, practice before, when you get that day and the conditions are going to be right? Or
well, ideally you should be there for like 2 months, but no one has all that time, so I'm usually there for like 3.5 weeks.
Okay.
And I usually end up being full on for those 3 weeks, and obviously not every day is that strong anyways. You hope that you get the best days in the end. What's happened this year was like that, so you have plenty of days to practice. And when the wind is not strong enough to go down the channel, we do go down at the natural looking beach, which is probably one of the fastest one in the world as well, called Point Diaz.
Okay.
And it's only like 15 minutes away from the channel, and also I broke 50 knots on the open ocean out there this year, so there's lots of things to do when a channel is not working.
Yeah. And then would you then practice with the same equipment back at home on Gran Canaria?
Similar equipment, because on the channel you use very small boards. It's only 40 centimeter wide.
Right.
And that's very, very narrow. And the ideal sails is like a 5.5 and a 5.2. Mm-hmm. I get to use these kind of sails here in the summertime, but the board size is usually 42.5 or 45 is the smallest one you can use here.
Nice. Cool. And what about like the Dunkerbeck challenges and events? Are you thinking about like organizing? Have you got anything coming up sort of for next year or?
Yeah, for all the ones who don't know it, I've been working on organizing. We've actually been done it for many years already. And it's a virtual platform together with GPS-speedsurfing.com. And it's called the Dunkerbeck Speed Challenge. We do 3 times 2 months, and anyone can join. It's this year it's going to be the same months for the next 3 years. I mean, this upcoming year is going to begin April and May, which is a spring challenge. Then we have the summer challenge, which is July and August, and the autumn challenge, which is October and November. This year we had 2,500 people in the ranking list altogether between windsurfing foil.
Oh, wow.
And we're also adding a wing foil for next year. We had done it this year as well for a start. There'll be a separate IQ foil class because they have to use the same size wing and the same size sail as well. And it's Olympic class, so we're going to try to motivate all the Olympic sailors to post their speeds to push up everybody around the globe. Mm-hmm. And we have also entered the windsurfer class, the windsurfer LT class, which is a retro modern windsurfing for light and medium wind. We're also sailing on the same kind of board, and we're doing that to motivate people to challenge each other around the globe as well. And the good thing, you can do that without traveling. You can do that on your favorite home spot. And we had over 30 nations on the last ranking list, and it's constantly improving. So if you're interested in a windsurfer or a wing foiler or a foiler at all, just check it out, Dunkerbeck Speed Challenge, and you pop right in there.
Nice.
Sign up and join.
And what about the centers? Have you sort of thought about whether you would do any different locations or?
Well, for this virtual speed challenge, you can do it anywhere.
Okay.
Wherever you wish. Doesn't matter. Gran Canaria, Maui, Australia. The fastest is going to be the fastest.
Yep. Awesome. And if people want to find out about it or if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way of getting in contact?
To me?
Yes, or to you, or just to find out about the challenge, or if people want to follow your journey, find out where the documentary's on.
Okay, you can obviously follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Mm-hmm. And also on my webpage, dunkerbeck.com. Pretty easy.
Yeah.
And Dunkerbeck Speed Challenge, we have a separate webpage. Just Google it. Google knows everything. So I think if you have a laptop or a cell phone, then Google is your best friend because Google knows everything. You probably won't even need to go to school sooner or later. Just have a good battery in your cell phone.
That's it. Wi-Fi and you're off.
You're off, yeah. It's a connection. You know everything.
Cool. Well, Björn, thanks so much for your time, man. It's been really good talking to you, hearing all your stories, and hope it all goes well. Getting ready and for doing the speed challenge again next year, and yeah, over in Namibia, it's going to be exciting to see what you guys what kind of speeds you'll be doing over there for sure.
Well, first of all, check out the videos that we already posted on Facebook and Instagram from this last season, and there's plenty of information about all the other stuff I've been doing. So if it's cold in Europe and you got nothing to do, just click on and let me know what you think.
Awesome. Thanks, Björn.
All right, take care. Hang loose from Gran Canaria.